Hey everyone, thank you for joining the Revenue Optimists. It's a space for go-to-market leaders and revenue operations folks to really come together and learn from one another in order to grow their businesses. My name is Dave Nelson, and with me today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by Navin Persaud, who is the Vice President of Revenue Operations at 1Password. And Navin has over 20 years experience in the industry. So yeah, thank you very much for joining, Navin. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Dave, for having me. So I guess, 20 years, man, it feels like a long time, but last 8 years in SaaS, I've seen good, I've seen bad, and I've seen everything in between, and super stoked to actually get an opportunity to share some of that here with you today.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you. I know that you've had roles at all sorts of other big companies and a few smaller ones as well. So I think you have a great overview of the different struggles that revenue operations folks go through. Do you mind telling us first a little bit more about 1Password?
Sure. I think in its simplest form, we look to make security simple. I think in today's day and age, there's always a story out there of a company that's been hacked or breached and that are suffering through it. And in reality, security is not simple in a lot of places. And I think as a company, we endeavor both internally and with our customers to sort of help them on that journey to become more successful in their security stance and generally make it easier for them to sort of like protect their digital lives and in all aspects of their online presence.
That's amazing. And I know that you have both commercial businesses as customers, but also individual users. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think the company was born from a consumer business, and in the last 5 to 6 years, really started to grow the B2B side of the house to the point where I think we're growing. We're a high growth company, a Canadian company, and one that had a tremendous round of funding in the last little while. So definitely on the upswing in the market.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and congratulations on the growth and the funding, because I know it's not easy to do right now, but it's a testament to how well you guys are doing. That's fantastic. So from a go-to-market perspective, you mentioned that is both personal consumer as well as business. What is your typical go-to-market? What does that look like? And where do you kind of focus on the revenue side of the business?
Yeah, my world really lives on the B2B side of it as opposed to the B2C. Within B2B, we have companies who can self-serve, so they can buy on their own through our e-commerce engine on our site right into the platform. We have customers who choose to go through the sales experience and want that more curated white glove experience to sort of like get into our product. And that's where most of sort of my time, systems, and tooling is spent supporting that sales engine and generating growth and visibility.
Nice. And I think if I remember correctly, you have a large inbound engine running. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great marketing team here. We have a great product. Those two things working together create demand for you that comes to your front door, which is something that is both amazing, yet it sometimes can be crazy to manage. But it's definitely a lucky position for us to be in.
I was going to say the same thing. It's fantastic. It's a great problem to have, but it can still be a problem nonetheless. How do you, from a RevOps standpoint, have to then react accordingly? Like what systems and processes and stuff do you have to put in place to be able to manage that? Or what do you recommend at least to other businesses out there going through the same?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got here, and it's sort of the story that I would share at any company, so it doesn't have to be 1Password specific. Companies who have an inbound engine, it's sort of like the first place I'll go when I get to a company, even before I know I'm starting. Fill out a form, try the product, see what happens, see who engages. And then when you get there, sort of look yourself up to see what happened to you. How did you get dispositioned, disqualified? Were you routed? Like, how quickly did someone respond? Those are all super interesting things. The next thing would be for me, and I did that here, and I've done that every other place, is sit with the SDR. Like, what's a few hours in their life look like? What's their chaos look like? And how hard or how easy is it for them to do what we're asking them to do? Then from there, you start to learn to understand, okay, what's marketing sending? What's scoring look like? And then how quickly can we just make use of the demand that we're generating?
I love that. I love that you go and fill it out ahead of time. to see the experience you get. And then of course, yeah, when you start, you can actually see behind the scenes to how was it scored, how was it routed, how was it assigned. Oh, that's a great suggestion. Okay, so right now you have all this inbound leads coming in, which then I'm guessing you have the systems to assign to the right people. From there, what does your job look like? What are the metrics and stuff that you're looking at, and the changes that usually you'll suggest to kind of operationalize that and work to improve things?
Yeah, I would say that marketing does their job right up until MQL. Then it's sort of handed over to the sales org to sort of do theirs. I look at the RevOps team, and it's sort of like three things. Like we just had our company kickoff. It was sports related. Right? Sports is a huge passion of mine, but I was able to draw a really great analogy between like the function of RevOps and sports in general. I like to think of RevOps doing three things, or the three pillars. We would prepare the pitch or build the field, where the games will be conducted. We'll be the referees to, put in process and guidelines so that, things happen the way they're supposed to, and people follow sort of that rules of engagement. And then while those two things are happening, we're also the commentators. We're telling the business what's happening on the field of play and sort of providing the narrative. And that's pretty much how we're structured here. We have a systems team, we have a process team, and then we have like an insights team that basically handle all three aspects. And it all starts with an MQL.
I love that analogy. My mind is running with how that overlaps into refereeing and to commentating. You're exactly right, because after the quarter, during the quarter, you're commentating on where everything is at, and afterwards you're debriefing and whatnot. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so back to like your inbound leads, and when you're managing that, there's a lot of overlap. There's that great crossover, because like you said, the marketing team is doing the work, they're generating the interest, the leads are coming in. How does that work for 1Password, or how do you recommend it? Because you've done this at a bunch of places, for that cohesive handoff from when marketing decides to give the leads over to sales.
Yeah, this is where I would say I've seen really bad, and in a few places I've been able to get to really good. For those folks who are living in a Salesforce environment, leads are where your dirty data lives. It's also where your best pipeline lives, and your ability to suss that out through very clean routing rules, assignment rules, enrichment, and then even these loops that I like to build throughout the process, so that really all leads are a now, a never, or later. And if it's a later, you want to be able to have the systems and mechanisms to come back to them when they re-engage. For the ones that are now, you want to be able to work them through your process and quickly move them into pipeline at agreed upon SLAs, both on the sales side and on the sales rep side, so that there's clean handoff and a clear expectation of, if this happens, then this follows.
Nice. Are you able to dive into any kind of secret sauce, and nothing proprietary, but how you would then set up one of those leads that's a not now, it's a later, to say when this comes back around, I'm guessing through marketing automation scoring and whatnot, that this is how we'll deal with it?
Yeah, it's really all about setting the right disposition and enabling the front line, which is typically your sales development role, to understand like, which bucket do I put this person in. If it's a not now, typically that's some kind of marketing nurture recycled like status. And then you would disposition that particular reason as to why you're putting them there, so that if you ever had to do like a rainy day list, or you have a new product or feature that now maybe meets that gap that you may have identified, you can circle back to those leads. And at the same time, you could have your marketing team running through campaigns or engagement to sort of reawaken these particular leads. They can rescore and come back. The key is when you move them to recycle or nurture, to sort of like degrade their score down, but not all the way down, so they can tip back up with some other engagement.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so decay them a little bit so that it's not like they're still super hot, but
Exactly.
not all the way down to a fresh start.
Exactly.
Any formula or anything you guys put towards that kind of decrease?
Nothing really here yet. What we do right now is we use the statuses. We work with the teams to enable them so that we can understand it. Marketing will pick from that list and work from there. I think these are all things that we're working on here. In past lives, definitely, even working with, Beck, who's over at Attraction here, we had some pretty good flows that we would re-engage with customers at the right time and sort of keep them alive and like move them through the funnel. It's not unlike juggling, right? Leads, you're just trying to keep all the balls in the air and not let any of them fall. And that's basically what we're trying to do with, interest, whether it be now or in the future, to sort of manage it through the pipeline.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. And this is going to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, but what do you recommend for situations like that, where you might have nurtured someone, they're a lead in your system, maybe they're even a contact from some point, and now they're showing interest again? Do you recommend having a second record showing that new interest, or to automatically just retain the others and kind of keep adding on to their experience?
I'm a little torn by this question because it all depends if they're still a lead or if you've created a contact for that person. The
Okay.
minute you've tipped that person over and created a contact, you sort of created a one-to-many relationship between, like, if you're using Marketo and if you're using Salesforce. Marketo has people, Salesforce has leads and contacts. It makes a distinction, Marketo doesn't. So if that person re-engages, Marketo is more than likely to just find the person in the CRM, whether it be a lead or now contact, and stitch it there. And from what I've seen, a lot of companies forget to set up clear routing and SLA rules on the contact side of their business. They're really good, or they're getting better at the lead side, which is like the front door, but this so-called back door isn't really well managed. It's typically contacts that are owned by the person who was working the deal, and those are typically not the best people to be immediately responsive to new inbound engagement. So having the right routing system, having the right scoring system on the contact side of your business is crucial to make sure you're not missing new engagement from people but have like reawoken.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I mean, I totally agree, and love that you brought that up. I mean, it's a large part of why we have, because of that there's different scenarios where sometimes you want to make sure that when existing contacts, maybe it's even an existing customer that's part of a continually buying company, but now they're interested in another product. You want to make sure that interest doesn't get lost in the marketing automation, that it gets rerouted and assigned to someone, or notified at least, so that they can go chase that and follow up on it.
Exactly.
So you, I'm guessing, are going after whole different segments, right? So you're probably getting leads coming in from verticals, industries, SMB, mid-market, enterprise. How do you segment? How do you establish that at 1Password?
At employee size, I mean, it's on our web forms. We ask for them to be filled out. Then we use that internally to decide like the segmentation with our business and, who sort of will work that business once it becomes qualified. It's typically something that I've seen at a lot of companies where they'll just use like employee size or revenue size to try and determine it. A lot of companies go with employee size because it's an easier data point to either collect or to enrich against.
Totally. Yeah, I hear you. And are you guys using any data providers?
Yeah, we use a company called Clearbit to help us do the front end enrichment. They're pretty good. And for companies who want less friction on their forms, but still want the benefit of a lot of data to make the right routing decisions, that's definitely one way to go.
Nice. Yeah, we're finding that there's so many different data providers these days. They're almost becoming niche, in the sense that some will focus on context, some will focus on verticals, some will focus on employee count or revenue, firmographics or technographics, that kind of thing. You guys probably have more than one, or sorry, that should be a question. Are you using more than one?
We are, but each has like its own use case. I think firmographics is the big thing. We're trying to understand the companies that are coming so that we can best serve that demand based on, their size, level of interest, or complexity.
Yeah. I believe it. Okay. So anything you recommend? It sounds like one of the things I picked up on that you just said is you're actually asking for employee count as a field on your web forms. Anything else you'd recommend either doing that way or versus automatically enriching it as they come in?
I mean, there are vendors that do the enrichment sort of on the fly before it gets into your marketing automation, or there are some that choose to do it like shortly thereafter. It all depends. Like if you're thinking of a traditional marketing form, maybe you have the liberty of asking for one or two more things, maybe a title, maybe you'd love a phone number, obviously, and maybe sort of like a reason, why they're reaching out. On PLG style, you probably want a lot less. It's you want the customer to get in the product as soon as possible. Name, email, maybe company name, and probably everything else might be optional at that point.
Nice. And actually, that's a good point. So with 1Password, is that what you're doing? Is it more PLG focused?
We have a lot of interest in our products. While I can't get into the mix ratios, I would say we have a lot of demand that comes to us from a lot of angles, and a lot of people like to try the product.
Nice. And so you do a trial?
We do a 14-day trial. We have 2 tiers on the business side. We have like a team starter pack for up to 10 users. And then we have our business tier, which has a few more features, functions allowed for it. And customers can sort of like, choose their own adventure as they sign up and then start to onboard and use the product.
That's great. And so what does that look like then operationally, either throughout or after you're done, or as you're approaching being done that trial? From an ops standpoint, what have you guys had to put in place or metrics you're trying to monitor?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is like, how do we treat that incoming demand? It's different from like your typical marketing demand where you would call them like hand raisers, where people are coming to you and wanting pricing or quote. These are people in your product, and you have to find the right time to engage because they chose to not engage with a human first. They chose to engage with their product first. So it's really crucial to understand the aha moment and sort of measure that and time your response so that you're right place, right time to potentially maximize that conversion. The other thing to consider is maybe they don't convert through a human, but maybe they convert on their own. You'll need the right tooling to ensure that you convert that lead automatically to an account, because then now it's a different part of your go-to-market motion that needs to serve that now customer that bought on their own, is now an account, is now a contact, and you need to figure out what's the best way to deal with them through your customer success and your support organizations.
Okay, interesting. I would have assumed that by the time they start a free trial, you'd create an op from there. But is that not the case? You're only creating that kind of once they get further on?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, once they sort of move through the funnel and let's sort of commit, we'll do some auto conversion. If they engage with our sales team, we'll work them through there and then start with an opportunity.
That's great. Well, Navin, thank you very much for joining us. This has been fantastic. For anyone else interested, please come on over the website, subscribe, or just follow us on LinkedIn. Like Navin was saying, we'll be releasing content like this in short snippets, as well as the long format that you can read. So Navin, I appreciate all the help.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Take care.